Hello, my name is Miraculous, and today I want to share with you something that completely changed my life. It's not easy to talk about, you know? But I feel it's important. It all started when I was just 12 years old. I was just an ordinary girl from Houston, Texas, enjoying my childhood, playing with my friends, going to school, those normal things every kid does. But then suddenly my life turned upside down. I was diagnosed with a rare disease, the kind where doctors frown and say a bunch of complicated words that we don't quite understand. At first, I didn't know what was happening. I just saw my parents, Laura and Michael, growing more and more worried. Hospital visits became more frequent, and soon I was spending more time there than at home. You know when you feel like something is very wrong, even though adults try to hide it? That's how I felt. Little by little, I began to understand that my situation was serious, very serious. The doctors did their best, but nothing seemed to work. I could see the despair in my parents' eyes, even when they tried to smile at me. It was hard, very hard. I was just a child, you know? I should have been worried about homework, not about the possibility of dying, but there I was, lying in a hospital bed, with tubes and machines around me, feeling my body grow weaker every day. But what happened next? Well, that's what I want to tell you. It was something that changed not only my life, but the way I see the world, death, and everything. It was an experience that profoundly affected me and that still moves me when I talk about it. It's not easy to put into words how to describe something so extraordinary, so out of this world, but I'll try. I'll try to tell you as best I can what happened to me in that hospital in Houston, the journey I took beyond this life and what I learned there. So, if you can, open your mind and your heart to what I'm about to tell. It may seem strange, even unbelievable, but I can assure you that every word is true. It's my story, the story of how I, Emery Callahan, an ordinary 12-year-old girl, took a trip to heaven and came back to tell it, you know. It's strange to look back and remember those days in the hospital. It's like another life, you know? I was there in that bed, my body growing weaker and weaker. The days dragged on, one after another, always the same: tests, treatments, more tests, more treatments. It was an exhausting and frightening routine. I remember looking out the window of the hospital room and seeing people outside, living their normal lives, children my age going to school, playing in the park, and I was there trapped in that bed, fighting for every breath. It's hard to explain how I felt. It was a mixture of fear, sadness, and a kind of resigned acceptance. My parents, oh, my parents, they tried to be strong for me, but I could see how much they were suffering. My mother, Laura, would spend hours sitting beside my bed, holding my hand. Sometimes, when she thought I was asleep, I'd hear her crying softly. My father, Michael, was the tough guy, you know. But I could see how his hands shook when he talked to the doctors. The doctors, they were good, you know. They tried everything, but I could tell by their looks, by the way they spoke in low voices to my parents, that things weren't going well. I heard words like terminal and out of options. Even as a child, I understood what that meant. There was one day in particular that I'll never forget. It was the day everything changed. I felt particularly weak that day, breathing was difficult, and I had pains all over my body. My parents were there as always, but there was something different in the air, a tension, a heavy silence. I remember looking at my mother's face and seeing silent tears streaming down my face. My father held my hand so tightly it actually hurt a little, but I didn't complain. I knew somehow that this could be our last moment together. Doctors came in and out of their room more frequently, nurses adjusted equipment, changed 4 bags, everything seemed to be happening in slow motion. I remember thinking about all the things I would never do. I would never go to high school. I would never have my first kiss, never drive a car. It was scary, but at the same time I felt strangely at peace, as if something inside me knew that somehow everything would be okay. My vision began to blur. The sounds around me seemed distant, as if I were underwater. I heard my mother scream for a doctor. I felt my father tighten his grip on my hand, and then, something I could never have imagined happened. something that would change everything. It's difficult to describe exactly what happened next, how to explain something that is beyond words, but I'll try because it's important. It's the most incredible part of my story. One moment I was lying there in the hospital bed, my body feeling weak and aching. The next, everything changed. It was as if a switch had been flipped inside me. Suddenly, all the pain, all the discomfort simply disappeared. I felt light, incredibly light, as if my body weighed nothing. And then the strangest thing happened. I found myself floating above my own bed. Yes, you heard right. I was looking down, seeing my own body lying there. It was terrifying at first. I could see the doctors and nurses rushing around the bed, doing something to my body. My parents were there, crying, screaming. I wanted to tell them I was okay, that they didn't need to worry, but when I tried to speak, no one heard me. I floated there, watching everything. It was like watching a movie, you know. Only the movie was about me, about my own death, or near death, as I came to understand later. And then something incredible happened. In the corner of the room, a light began to appear. It wasn't an ordinary light, you know. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen, bright, but not in a way that hurt the eyes. It was warm and welcoming. The light grew stronger, more intense, and I felt drawn to it, not in a scary way, but as if it were calling me, inviting me, and I wanted to go. I really wanted to. As I approached the light, I began to feel an incredible peace. All the fears, all the worries I had about the illness, about dying, about leaving my parents, all of it simply vanished. It was replaced by a feeling of love and security I had never experienced before. And then I stepped into the light. It was like diving into an ocean of pure love. I felt enveloped, protected, as if nothing bad could happen to me there. When the light dissipated, I found myself in a place, in a place that wasn't the hospital anymore. It was a place I had never seen before, but somehow felt familiar, as if I were returning home after a long journey. The air there was different, lighter, purer. The colors were more vibrant than anything I had ever seen on Earth. There was soft music in the background, as if the air itself were singing. I felt complete, as if all the puzzle pieces of my existence had finally fit together. For the first time in my life, or was it beyond life, I felt truly at peace. It was at that moment that I realized I was no longer in the world I knew. I had crossed some kind of boundary. I was in a new place, a wonderful place, a place many call heaven, and my journey there was just beginning. When the light around me completely dissipated, I found myself in a place that, to say it was beautiful would be an understatement. It was breathtaking. Imagine the most beautiful garden you've ever seen in your life and multiply it by 1,000. Still, it doesn't come close to what I saw. I was in an immense garden. The sky above me was such a deep blue and brilliant that it seemed almost unreal. There was no visible sun, but everything was bathed in a soft, golden light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The flowers, the flowers came in every color imaginable. Some I didn't even know existed, roses, lilies, orchids, and other flowers I'd never seen before, each one more beautiful than the last. And the smell, my God, the smell was a sweet, gentle perfume that filled the air, but it wasn't cloying. It was as if every breath I took filled me with life and energy. The grass beneath my feet was a vibrant green, soft as velvet. Every step I took was like stepping on clouds. There were majestic trees scattered throughout the garden, with leaves that shone as if made of gold and silver, and the sound was music in the air. It was unlike anything I'd ever heard before. It was as if thousands of angelic voices were singing in perfect harmony. The melody was so beautiful it almost hurt to listen, but at the same time, I never wanted it to stop. As I walked through the garden, marveling at everything around me, I noticed something strange. I wasn't wearing my hospital gown. In fact, I couldn't even remember what it was like to be sick. My body felt light, strong, healthy. I was dressed in something that seemed to be made of pure light, a garment that glowed softly. The most incredible thing was how I felt. All the pain, all the fear, all the sadness I had felt during my illness had completely vanished. In its place was a profound peace, a joy I had never experienced before. It was as if every cell in my body, if I still had a body, was singing with happiness. As I walked through the garden, I saw other people in the distance. They seemed as happy and at peace as I was. Some were alone, contemplating the flowers or looking up at the sky. Others were in small groups, chatting animatedly. Everyone had a soft glow around them, as if they were lit from within. I wondered if I knew any of those people. Were they people who had also died, or were they angels? I didn't know, but somehow it didn't seem important. I felt connected to all of them, as if we were part of one big family. As I explored the garden further, I discovered small streams of crystal clear water winding among the flowers. The water sparkled as if made of liquid diamonds. The soft sound of running water blended perfectly with the angelic music in the air. I don't know how long I spent there. It could have been minutes or it could have been centuries. Time seemed meaningless in that place. I only knew I had never felt so at peace, so complete. It was then that I saw him, a man dressed in white walking toward me. Even before he got close, I knew who it was. My heart, if I still had one, felt like it would burst with joy and awe. It was him, it was Jesus. I'll be honest with you, nothing could have prepared me for that moment. Seeing Jesus walking toward me, well, it's something words simply can't adequately describe, but I'll try. He approached slowly, and each step he took seemed to make the garden grow even brighter. His robe was a white so pure it almost hurt to look directly at it, but his face, oh, his face, the face of Jesus, how can I describe it? It was at once familiar and entirely new. His eyes were deep, a brown so dark they seemed almost black, but they shone with an inner light that made me feel completely exposed and completely loved at the same time. His smile was gentle, full of understanding and compassion. When he reached me, he stopped and said, "Emery, my daughter." His voice was like music, like the sound of 1,000 waterfalls, like the softest whisper, all at once, and the way he said my name was as if he knew me better than I knew myself. I stood there paralyzed, unsure of what to say or do. Part of me wanted to kneel, another part wanted to run and hug him. Before I could decide, Jesus opened his arms and embraced me. In that moment, I felt all the love in the universe envelop me. It was a love so pure, so strong, so unconditional that it made me tremble. Every doubt, every fear I had ever known simply disappeared. I felt completely safe, completely accepted, completely loved. When the hug ended, Jesus held my hands and looked into my eyes. "You've been through so much, my little one," he said, his voice full of understanding, "but you were so brave." Tears began to stream down my face. They weren't tears of sadness, but of relief, of pure joy. "I was so afraid," I confessed, my voice shaking a little. Jesus smiled gently. "I know, my daughter, I was with you all the time, even when you couldn't see or feel me." We stood there for a moment in silence. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence, but a silence filled with peace and mutual understanding. It was as if in that moment every question I'd ever had was being answered, even without words being spoken. Then Jesus released my hands and made a sweeping gesture, indicating the garden around us. "Come," he said, "let's walk a little. There's so much I want to show you." As we walked side by side through the heavenly garden, I felt completely at ease. It was as if I was talking to my best friend, someone who had known me for all eternity. Jesus spoke to me about the flowers, the trees, the music in the air. Every word he said seemed filled with meaning, with ancient wisdom. At one point, we stopped near a crystal clear stream. Jesus bent down and touched the water with his fingertips. Waves of light spread across the surface of the water. "See, Emery," he said, "just as this water reflects light, so every soul reflects God's love. Sometimes the surface may be rough, but the light always finds a way." I was amazed at the depth of his words. Everything he said seemed to touch my soul in a way I had never experienced before. As we continued our walk, I felt that was being renewed, transformed. Each step beside Jesus was like a lesson in love, compassion, and understanding. I began to see the world, life in a completely new way, and then he came to a tree, unlike any other I had seen in the garden. Its fruit shone like pure gold, and a sweet, irresistible aroma emanated from it. Jesus stopped before the tree and turned to me with an enigmatic smile. I knew something important was about to happen. Jesus approached the tree and with a gentle movement plucked one of the golden fruits. He held it in his hands for a moment, looking at it with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. It was a mixture of reverence, love, and something else, wisdom, perhaps. Then he turned to me and held out the fruit. "This," he said, "is the fruit of life." I stared at the fruit in fascination. It shone with its own light, as if made of liquid sunlight. Can I eat it?" I asked hesitantly. Jesus smiled. "Is that what it's for, my daughter?" My hands trembling slightly, I picked up the fruit. It was surprisingly light, almost as if it held no weight at all. I lifted it to my mouth and took a bite. The flavor, how can I describe it? It was sweet, yes, but not in a way I'd ever experienced before. It was as if I were tasting the very essence of life. Each bite seemed to fill me with energy, with vitality. As I ate, I felt something awaken within me. It was as if veils were being removed from my eyes, as if I were seeing the world, no, the universe, clearly for the first time. Suddenly, all the questions I'd had about life, about heaven, about the future, came flooding back. It was as if the fruit had unlocked something within me. "Jesus," I said, swallowing the last bite of fruit, "can I ask you a question?" He nodded, his eyes shining with what appeared to be amusement. "Sure, Emery, what do you want to know?" I hesitated for a moment. There were so many things I wanted to ask, but one question in particular stood out. "The end of the world," I finally said. "When will it happen? What will it be like?" Jesus didn't seem surprised by my question. He sat down on the soft grass and gestured for me to join him. As I sat down, he began to speak. "The end of the world, Emery, isn't quite what people on earth imagine," he said, his voice calm and serene. "It won't be a time of total destruction, but rather of renewal." I listened fascinated as he continued. "There will be a time when a new heaven and a new earth will emerge, a place where there will be no more pain, no more sorrow, no more death, where all who love God will be together in perfect harmony." "But when will that happen?" I asked eagerly. Jesus smiled gently. "God's timing is not like human timing, my daughter. It's not up to us to know the day or the hour. The important thing is to live each day with love, with compassion, doing good and spreading God's message." I thought for a moment, digesting his words. "So, shouldn't we be afraid of the end of the world?" "No, Emma," Jesus answered, his voice full of certainty. "Those who love God have nothing to fear. The end will be just the beginning of something much more beautiful." We sat there for a while in comfortable silence. I gazed at the garden around us, to the vibrant colors, to the golden light that seemed to come from everywhere, and I realized that if the new heaven and the new earth were anything like this, there really was nothing to fear. Jesus stood and held out his hand to me. "Come on," he said. "There's more I want to show you." As we walked, I felt a deep peace. Jesus' words about the end of the world, far from frightening me, filled me with hope. It was comforting to know that in the end everything would be okay, that all the suffering, all the pain I had experienced on earth, would one day be just a distant memory. And so, hand in hand with Jesus, I continued my journey through heaven, eager to see what else he had to show me. As we walked through the heavenly garden, a question that had always intrigued me came to mind. I gathered my courage and decided to ask Jesus. "Jesus," I began a little hesitantly, "how do people get to heaven? I mean, what does it take to get here?" Jesus stopped walking and turned to me. His eyes were deep and full of understanding. He was silent for a moment, as if pondering how to respond. "Emmy," he began, his voice soft but clear, "what I'm going to tell you may surprise you. It's something few on earth truly understand." I sensed her eagerness to hear what he had to say. "Only 1% of people who reach heaven do so because of fervent devotion to God," Jesus revealed. I was shocked. "Only 1%, but what about the others?" 99%, Jesus smiled gently. "Most people are welcomed here by divine mercy. It's not about following rigid rules or having unwavering faith. It's about a person's heart, about their goodness, about their desire to be in communion with God." even if they don't consciously realize it. I remained silent for a moment, trying to process this information. It was so different from what I'd always heard, but I kept going. And to people who don't believe in God or who follow other religions, Jesus put his hand on my shoulder. Emmy, God's love is far greater than any religion or belief. He looks at people's hearts, those who live with love, who treat others with kindness and compassion, who seek to do good. Those are closer to God than they imagine, even if they don't call him by the name you know. I was amazed. It was such a broader, more inclusive vision than I had ever imagined. Then I said slowly, what really matters is how we live our lives, how we treat others. Exactly, Jesus answered, his eyes shining. Love is the key. Emery, the love of God that manifests itself through love for others. It's not about rituals or dogma, it's about surviving love in all its forms. We were silent for a moment as I absorbed all of this. It was a revelation that completely changed my understanding of heaven and the judgment of souls. Jesus, I said finally, this is incredible. But why do so few people on earth seem to understand this? He sighed softly. Humans often complicate what is simple. They create rules and divisions where there should be only love and unity. But remember, Emery, every soul that arrives here is a celebration. Each one is precious in the eyes of God. As we continued our walk, I felt light, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The idea that love and kindness were what truly mattered, that God's mercy was so vast, was comforting and inspiring at the same time. I realized I had much to reflect on regarding this revelation. If I had the chance to return, I knew I would see the world and the people around me in a completely different way. Jesus seemed to sense my thoughts. Remember this, Emery, he said softly. Every act of kindness and every gesture of love, no matter how small, has an eternal impact. This is how the path to heaven is paved. With these words swirling in my mind, we continued our journey through paradise, and I felt closer than ever to understanding the true meaning of divine love. As we walked through the heavenly garden, I felt a subtle shift in the air. It was as if a gentle breeze had begun to blow, carrying with it a sweet, comforting aroma. Jesus stopped suddenly and turned to me. His eyes were filled with a love and seriousness that made me pay close attention. Emery, he said, his voice soft but firm, your time here is drawing to a close. I felt my heart, or whatever it was in that state, tighten. Already, I asked, unable to hide the sadness in my voice, but there is so much I still want to learn, so much I want to see. Jesus smiled gently. I know, my daughter, but you have an important mission to fulfill. I was intrigued. A mission? He nodded. Yes, Emery, you will return to Earth, and when you do, you will have a very special task. I listened intently, eager to know what this important mission would be that would make me leave this wonderful place. Your mission, Jesus continued, is to share with others what you have learned here, to tell them about God's love, about the importance of kindness and compassion. I was a little daunted by the responsibility, but what if people don't believe me? What if I don't know what to say? Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder and immediately felt a wave of comfort and courage wash over me. Don't worry about that, Emery, the words will come when you need them. The important thing is that you live what you have learned here, Jesus continued, his voice full of wisdom and love. Emery, your mission is not just to talk about what you have seen here, it is to live it. Each day will be an opportunity to show others God's love through your actions. I sensed her still a little unsure, but determined to do my best. How should I do this, Jesus? He smiled, his eyes shining with approval. Live with kindness, Emery, help those who need it, even when no one is looking, forgive those who hurt you, even when it's hard, love others unconditionally, as God loves you. Her words touched my heart deeply. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I felt it was something I needed to do. And remember, Jesus added, love is the greatest gift we can offer each other. It doesn't take great actions to change the world. Sometimes, a simple smile, a kind word, can make all the difference in someone's life. I absorbed every word, feeling the weight and importance of this mission. I will try, Jesus, I promise I will do my best, he nodded, his smile full of confidence in me. I know you will, my daughter. And remember, you will never be alone. I will always be with you, even when you can't see or feel me." Then Jesus knelt down to my level and looked me in the eye. "There's one more thing, Emery. When you return, many people will want to know about your experience here. Some will believe you, others won't. Don't worry about that, just share your story with love and honesty." I felt it, feeling a mixture of anxiety and determination. What if I forget something? There's so much to remember? Jesus smiled gently. "Don't worry, the most important memories will stay with you, and even if some details are lost, what truly matters the love you felt here. The peace you experienced will be engraved on your soul forever." He then stood and extended his hand to me. "Come, there's one more place I want to show you before you return, a place that will give you strength in the difficult times ahead." I took his hand, feeling a wave of courage and love envelop me. As we walked, I knew my life would never be the same. I had been given a purpose, a mission, and even though it seemed daunting, I was determined to fulfill it to the best of my ability. Jesus led me through a path that seemed to glow beneath our feet. As we walked, I could feel a growing energy in the air, as if we were approaching something truly extraordinary. I couldn't wait to see what Jesus wanted to show me next. As we walked, the scenery around us began to change. The heavenly garden, with all its beauty, gradually gave way to something even more impressive. On the horizon, I saw a brilliant light that seemed to grow as we approached. "What is that?" I asked. My eyes could barely absorb the spectacle before me. Jesus smiled, his eyes shining with a special kind of joy. "That, Emery, is the New Jerusalem." As we approached, the details of the city began to reveal themselves. It was breathtaking. The city walls glowed with a light that seemed to come from within them. They were made of precious stones of every imaginable color: jasper, sapphire, emerald, and many others I couldn't even name. The streets, they seemed paved with pure gold, but a gold unlike anything I had ever seen. It was transparent, like glass, reflecting the light in a way that made the whole city seem alive. "Yes, it's incredible," I whispered, barely able to find the words to describe what I was seeing. Jesus nodded. "This is the city God has prepared for those who love Him. One day, all who believe will live here in perfect harmony." As we walked through the golden streets, I saw people, or were they angels, moving through the city. Everyone seemed to radiate a light of their own, and their faces were filled with a joy I had never seen before. Jesus led me to a majestic building in the center of the city. It was larger and more impressive than any structure I had ever seen on earth. The doors opened by themselves as we approached. Inside was a vast room. In the center of it, on a pedestal, sat a huge book. It shone with a light of its own, and I could feel a power emanating from it. Jesus said, his voice filled with reverence, "This is the book of life." I gazed at the book in fascination. "What does it contain?" I asked. "Honest book," Jesus explained, "are written the names of all those who love God and choose to follow Him. Each name here represents a soul, precious in the eyes of the Father." Jesus approached the book and opened it. The pages seemed to be made of a material I had never seen before. They were as fine as silk, but they shone like pearls. "Come," Jesus beckoned me with a smile. I approached, my heart pounding. Jesus turned a few pages and then pointed to a name. My heart nearly stopped when I saw it. It was my name, Emery Cullihan, written in gold letters. "Your name is here, Emery," Jesus said softly. "It was written here, before you were even born." Tears of joy and gratitude filled my eyes. It was such a powerful, personal confirmation of God's love for me. Jesus gently closed the book and turned to me. "Remember this in difficult times, Emery. Your name is written in the book of life. Nothing can change that." Then, Jesus pointed to the many blank pages of the book, and see, there is room for many more names. Part of your mission is to help others find their way into this book. I stood there looking at the book of life, feeling the weight and honor of the mission entrusted to me. I knew that no matter what happened when I returned, this vision would give me the strength to carry on. Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder. "It's time, Emery, you need to return now. I felt her feeling a mixture of sadness at leaving this incredible place and determination to fulfill my mission. With one last look at the New Jerusalem and the Book of Life, I prepared to return to the world I knew. Jesus hugged me one last time, his embrace full of love and strength. "Remember, Emery," he said, his voice soft but firm, "live each day as if it were your last. Love God and love others. This is the essence of everything you have seen and learned here." I felt her feeling tears in my eyes. Part of me didn't want to leave, but I knew I had an important mission to fulfill. "I will always be with you," Jesus promised. "Even when you can't see or feel me, I will be thee." With these words, Jesus gently touched my forehead. The moment his fingers touched my skin, I felt a surge of energy course through my entire body. The light around me grew brighter and brighter, until all I could see was whiteness, and then, suddenly, the darkness. For a moment, I felt lost, disoriented. Where was I? What had happened? Gradually, I began to hear familiar sounds, the beeping of machines, muffled voices, the sound of hurried footsteps. Slowly, with great effort, I opened my eyes. The first thing I saw was the face of my mother, Laura. Her eyes were red and swollen, but an incredulous smile was beginning to form on her lips. "Emery," she whispered, her voice trembling. Beside her was my father, Michael. He was holding my hand, and I could feel it trembling. "Princess," he said, his voice hoarse. "Mommy, Daddy," I managed to whisper. My voice was weak but clear. The room exploded with activity. Doctors and nurses rushed to my bed, checking monitors, asking questions, looking completely astonished. I heard one of the doctors say, "It's a miracle, there's no other explanation." In the days that followed, I underwent a series of exams and tests. The doctors couldn't explain what had happened. All evidence of my terminal illness had disappeared. It was as if I had never been sick. My recovery was rapid and complete. Within days, I was up, walking, and eating normally. The doctors called it a miraculous recovery, but I knew it was much more than that. When I felt strong enough, I began to tell my parents about my experience. I told them about the heavenly garden, about Jesus, about the New Jerusalem and the Book of Life. I told them about the mission I had been given. At first, they seemed confused, perhaps even a little skeptical, but as I continued to talk, sharing details that a 12-year-old girl couldn't possibly have invented, I saw understanding and admiration grow in their eyes. "Oh, Emery," my mother said, tears streaming down her face, "what an incredible experience you had." My father, always the most skeptical, seemed to be struggling to understand, but he hugged me tightly and said, "I don't know exactly what happened, Princess, but I know it was extraordinary and I'm so happy you're back with us." In the months and years that followed, I kept my promise to Jesus. I began living each day with purpose, spreading love and kindness wherever I went. It wasn't always easy. There were days when I felt discouraged, days when memories of heaven seemed distant, but in those moments I remembered the Book of Life, my name written in it, and found the strength to keep going. I shared my story with anyone who would listen. Some believed, others didn't, but that didn't matter. What mattered was the message of love and hope I could share. Today, years after that extraordinary experience, I still feel the impact of those moments in heaven. Every time I help someone, every time I show love to someone strange, I feel like I'm fulfilling the mission I was given. And in the quiet moments, when I close my eyes, sometimes I can almost hear the heavenly music, feel the loving embrace of Jesus, see the radiance of the New Jerusalem, and I know, with a certainty beyond all doubt, that one day I will return there. But until then, I have a work to do here on earth, a work of love